Hello, buddy. All right. Welcome to the Mikestand. Sorry, I'm a tad late there. Just had some other stuff going on. So hopefully everybody's having a good start to the week thus far. Of course, today is Tuesday, December the 9th, 2025. So friendly reminder to everybody, of course, both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, and of course give people a chance to come in before we get started. So hopefully, alrighty then. So, anyways, all right, there we go. That should help a little bit, hopefully. And anyways, so yeah, today I finished watching April, the latter half of the April stuff that went on. The cartoons that what came out in April of 1943, including, of course, Homer Pigeon's last appearance for like 13 years. He's in a swing symphony short known as "Swing Your Partner," which he takes his girlfriend Daisy to swing dance, and they swing dance together. Of course, saw Popeye have a chance to get a furlough going back home, olive oil. And even though I had initially heard, I thought that Margie Hines stopped doing olive oil, in 42, but apparently she kept going at least through until 43, 44. Um, so yeah, so, um, let's see, saw an MGM cartoon, kind of a adaptation. The MGM cartoon was the boy and the wolf. Kind of a slightly different adaptation of the boy who cried wolf. In other words, what he would do is he'd get it. He'd basically get his dog annoyed by saying wolf, wolf, help me, perito, perito. Perito means little dog in Spanish, of course. Perito, perito, come help me, and then the dog initially ignored him when the wolf finally showed up and then fought him off later. And then of course saw Fox and the Crow Color Rhapsody cartoon, depicting the crow. They were saying that the crow was trying to live off of acorns and leaves, but he instead was trying to steal the fox's food. All right, so we have we have some more people now. So let me talk about what's on tap for tonight. We're gonna go over a couple of stories from Bounding into Comics, both Marvel related. Let's start off with. So we got, despite making billions from Miles Morales, Marvel pays zero royalties to original artists. The saddest part of my life. That article is by Spencer McCooley, and then we get another Spencer McCooley article talking about how Marvel forces more unnecessary MCU synergy, renames infamous Iron Man arc ahead of Avengers Doomsday. We're going to be looking at those two articles. We'll, of course, get all caught up on what happened on the go home Raw before, heading into this Saturday. Um, you know, heading into this Saturday night's main event. Found out that the card the card has been finalized. Also, we did hear some sad news today. Is former NWA World Junior Heavyweight and AWA World Tag Team Champion Steve Regal has apparently passed away. We'll be talking a little bit about that. Now, this is Steve Regal, not to be confused with William Regal, who did go by the name Lord Steven Regal in WCW. This was Steve Regal, whose name actually was Steve Regal. Big time star in the Midwest and Southern territories for many years in the 70s and 80s. We'll talk a bit about him. Then, of course, we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and again, one last friendly reminder before we get started. Of course, if you haven't already, you guys can like and share the stream so we can get some more friendly people to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. I just have to do one more quick thing here, apparently, because something's not. Because again, this is not nice to me today. Alright, so I'll try that, but okay. So anyways, so let's go ahead and get started then on the articles here. Let me pull this up. Alrighty then. Alright, so here we go. Despite making billions from Miles Morales, Marvel pays zero royalties to original artists. Quote, the saddest part of my life, unquote. Article by Spencer McCulley, published yesterday. So let's take a look at this. Though the mainstream comic book industry is unfortunately no stranger to raw deals and talent neglect, Marvel Comics has a particular love for screwing over creators, particularly when it comes to making literal billions upon billions off of their work and then denying them any proper financial compensation. It happened to Rocket Raccoon creator Bill Mantlo with the late Spider-Man 2099 visionary Peter David, and now with Miles Morales co-creator Sarah Pichelli. The Italian comic book artist who not only co-created the second Ultimate Spider-Man ahead of his debut in Ultimate Fallout Volume 1, Number 4, but also penned the first arc of his subsequent Ultimate Comics All New Spider-Man Volume 1 solo series, spoke to her unfortunate treatment by Marvel while speaking with reporter Gabriel Matos, representing the Brazilian language Marvel-centric news outlet. Jameson's site, ostensibly named after the Daily Bugle proprietor J. Jonah Jameson, during recent CCXP comic convention in Sao Paulo. Beginning on a rather optimistic note, the conversation opened with a trip down memory lane with Matos asking Pacelli, quote, "So when you, in brackets here, and writer Brian Michael Bendis, uh, unbracketed, created the character, did you have a sense that it would become this cultural phenomenon that it has?" Unquote. To which she laughed, quote, "No way," unquote. Quote, "I was positive because it was a very great story. I love the character, the human side of the character. It's very different from the original one, and that could be a good thing. Just a break, just a break and do something different. But no, we couldn't expect what was going to happen," unquote. Quote, "And I was happy, brackets, that we had no expectations," unbracketed, um, about it, because it would have been too much pressure, you know. So I was like, lighthearted. I was lighthearted working on it. It was just a good job, a good gig. From there, Matos turned the conversation to the initial controversy surrounding Miles' reveal, asking his guest, quote, "The announcement sparked a lot of theories and some backlash from parts of fans. How did you respond to that narrative at the time? People were even theorizing you were inspired by Obama and things like that," unquote. To this, Pacelli replied, quote, "I remember that time it was a bit shocking in the beginning because people were rear ends. And actually, they were, I could feel the hate," unquote. Met with the commiserating exclamation from Matos, quote, "and for nothing," unquote. Pacelli noted, quote, "not nothing, it was racism. It has a very specific name." I was like, in small quotes here, "What the bleep?" unquote. Quote, "That's the feeling like, well, no, well, okay. Thing is, though, I don't think it was racism. I think it was, once again, drastically changing the character for no apparent reason. That's how a lot of people took it. But if this is supposed to be the idea of like another universe, another Canaan, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with if you're creating a similar or if you're create like that if you're doing this as like kind of like what DC would call an Elseworld or something like that. I think that's all right if you want to do that, but not in the, if you're going to present it as part of the main canon, I think you are going to have some backlash from people, not because they're racist, just because Miles Morales happened to be a dark-skinned Hispanic person, but because people want Peter. People want Peter. Peter is and always will be Spider-Man to many people, and Peter Parker will, to most people, to most fans, Peter Parker will be the one and only Spider-Man. You know, short of the possibility that he happens to have kids who he somehow is able to like genetically pass his powers onto per se. Um, but the whole idea though of creating a character for DEI purposes is just frowned upon. You know, And it's not because people are racist. It's because people don't like, they don't like change first off. So it doesn't matter. It could have been another white person and they would have probably had somewhat of a, negative reaction. But I think what compounds this in this case, compounds it in this case is that this is another part of pushing an agenda that people don't want crammed down their throat. Usually, if you in actuality try to force something down somebody's throat or getting in their face, you're gonna get a volatile response. You get in somebody's face or you try to shove something down their throat, they're gonna respond in kind. They're very likely to respond in kind. Anyways, continuing on here with the article, quote, that's a feeling like, really, we should be grateful for this. Something is bringing a voice that wasn't there before. But no, of course. But after the first stage of the reaction, people got, in brackets, on board with Miles. Well, eventually people will kind of come to accept it. But the fact is that it has nothing to do with race. It has more to do with the fact that Peter has been, if anything, people are more upset at the fact that they keep regurgitating Peter's story and they did the whole, and they were still upset about the one more day storyline. So just when you do kind of stuff like that, when you take, beloved elements, wrap them up as if they were toilet paper and use them to wipe you know what with, people are going to have a very strong reaction to that. To this, Matos observed, quote, I think he became even a huge symbol for black people. They can be included in the spaces as well. Unquote. Now, a lot of people would argue that again, here's been my take on the whole, on these last 5-6 years, this whole DEI push and all this. Oh, we need more representation because we've had history of representation before. Okay, look at what like Dennis Cowan's the only name I can think of, but there's another. You guys know what I'm talking about. The guys who created like Static Shock hardware, Milestone. Dwayne McDuffie, I believe. Okay, look at what Dwayne McDuffie did with Milestone Comics, right? And the eventual, and the eventual, and the eventual, cartoon series, Static Shock, right? Now, eventually, Milestone got kind of bought up by DC and all that, but I liked what he originally did, and I liked what I saw in the cartoon. He wasn't trying to push it down everybody's throat. He was acknowledging the realities of it, but he wasn't trying to vilify people either. He didn't castigate all white. Dwayne McDuffie never castigated all white people as racist, nor all black people as saints. Like Hot Streak and Static's issues weren't because Hot Streak was a racist, it's because Hot Streak was a punk. All right, he was a thug, a criminal, and so you've had quote unquote minorities represented in comics before. I think people would be a lot more open if if you create original characters like Dwayne McDuffie did with Static and with Static and Hardware, if you created original characters to be the representation instead of trying to take legacy trying to in order to push an agenda, trying to force a minority character or a minority individual into a legacy character. People are going to frown down on that idea. And one of the reasons I know in some of these representation bits here, like when you're talking about like the LGBTQ representation, say, well, we need more LGBTQ. So, and the reason why they go with the legacy characters instead of just creating new characters, very simple: name recognition. In other words, if you can get Superman, even if it's not the Superman most of us grew up with, even if it's not Clark Kent, if it happens to be his son, who says, "Yeah, being gay is cool. Everybody should be gay," then you're gonna have some people who don't want to use their brain and don't want to really think about it too much. Just follow shit like naive little lambs. So, it's a lot easier to push something when you get a well-known character, a legacy character, to push it than to just bring in a new character and hope people will accept it. That's something I've made a point of several times, when we've talked about this stuff. And the whole question of representation comes back. Instead of trying to pirate, legacy characters, create your own characters and try to run with them as best you can. Maybe it will succeed, maybe it won't. But if you don't want the backlash, don't try forcing stuff down people's throats. Anyways, let's see, I guess I got it. So to this, Matos observed, quote, "I think he became even a huge symbol for Black people, that they can be included in the spaces as well," unquote. Oh yeah, that's where I left off. Prompting Pichelli to assert, quote, "Maybe the young people saw the potential for that. Comics is a small part, and maybe young people don't read comics. They saw him in the movie and video games." And it was on the mention of Miles' non-comic media presence that the bleak reality of Marvel's legal dealings reared its ugly head, with Matos inquiring with Pichelli as to whether she is, in quotes here, receives a portion of that monetarily, unquote, and the artist simply balking, quote, "I wish I would be a billionaire. I wish I would be a billionaire, but I don't. The saddest part of my life," unquote. Drawing astonishment from her host, who in turn exclaimed, "We should start an online campaign," Pichelli ultimately pleaded, quote, "Please do. A political campaign. Pay us. It's a lot of merchandising," unquote. Let's see. All right. As with Mantlo and David, in parentheses, and many, many others, unparenthesed, before, Pichelli's situation may be morally and ethically unsound, but it's sadly completely legal. as Marvel Comics employ a work-for-hire, in small quotes, model, whose terms dictate that any concept, character, or story create while under contract for them becomes the sole property of the publisher. Further, said contracts do not hold any guarantees to royalties, but rather offer the opportunity for writers and artists to receive, in smaller quotes, incentive payments in the case their work blows up, which unfortunately hold no guaranteed, in smaller quotes, level of pay or promise of issuance, instead being completely up to Marvel's discretion. However, as noted above, in smaller quotes, legally correct is a far, far different qualification than, in smaller quotes here, morally or smaller quotes, ethically correct. And given the insane amounts of money and cultural currency Marvel rakes in from Miles' various appearances from across the Spider-Verse to Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man line, hell, even Spidey and his Amazing Friends does gangbusters for the preschool demographic, it's exceptionally clear at its high past time for these publishers and corporations to find some semblance of a soul and give the creators whose work they profit from their just dues. Well, I mean, on the other hand, the creators knowing this, if they know that this is a potential for what they have to deal with, they could also just voluntarily, go out on their own. Try, especially now, as indie comics have become more of a profit source of late for many artists, and even many of the well-known artists, guys like Chuck Dixon and Mike Barrett and Ethan Van Sciver. So, um, that's another way to go too. So, anyways, again, a friendly reminder to everybody: if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's get ready to move on to the next story here that we're going to talk about here. So here we go. Here we get into this story here. So Marvel forces more unnecessary MCU synergy, renames, in smaller quotes, infamous Iron Man, on smaller quote, arc ahead of Avengers Doomsday, in smaller quotes there. Article by Spencer McQuilly published today. So let's see what's going on here. So at this point in the MCU's thus far 17-year history, fans are no stranger to Marvel's infamous insistence on forcing movie synergy upon its source material, having long learned to roll their eyes and wait it out until Disney's marketing department moves on to the next project. And even so, the Avengers Doomsday motivated change to the movie's sole tangentially related Iron Man comic book story is too egregious to ignore. Coming from the veteran writer-artist duo of Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev, said story picks up in the aftermath of 2015 Secret War event and finds Doctor Doom attempting to address a newfound feeling of personal emptiness as born from the realization that his quest for power was solely based on his hatred of Reed Richards. By turning over a new leaf and dedicating his genius to helping the world instead of conquering it. All right. But rather than doing so under his own name or a new identity, Doom instead sought to serve his penance by taking on the mantle of Iron Man, having viewed Tony Stark's falling into a coma at the end of Civil War as a cosmic nudge as to how he could best serve the world, in parentheses, a move which unsurprisingly draws him the fast ire of New York superhero community. Well, duh! On parentheses right there. Yeah, that's. I'm sure that probably drew the ire of a few fans too. Hey, Fit Show, though, thanks for popping in. If you haven't already, you can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see. Good for both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers, by the way. Originally collected in trade paperback in 2 volumes, respectively, titled Infamous and The Absolution of Doom, while the arc does feature a lone Earth 616 instance of either Tony Stark or Victor Von Doom stepping into the other's metal shoes, it otherwise has nothing in common with the Avengers Doomsday, whose version of Doctor Doom is both multiversal Iron Man variant rather and a through and through villain. Parentheses here. Though regularly pointed out by casual MCU fans as evidence of the film's comic book authenticity that intends what if Iron Man demon in an armor, as its name suggests, a non-canon one-shot, unparenthesed there, or unparenthesed there. Regardless, Marvel has decided that with its upcoming single-volume reprint, the full 12-issue arc will receive a new title, Rise of Doom, alongside a new piece of MCU-heavy marketing copy. Iron Man's very own Robert Downey Jr. returns as Dr. Victor Von Doom. In parentheses, you read that right. On parentheses. In Marvel Studios' Avengers Doomsday in theaters December 18, 2026. The Marvel Universe's greatest villain is no stranger to armor. But now he's trying something new on for size. Heroism. And where Tony Stark failed, Doom will succeed. But what is Victor's master plan? That's what a great number of folks want to know, including Ben Grimm, Pepper Potts, and the other Iron Man, Riri Williams. In his heroic quest, Doom faces a cosmic level adversary, his most mortal enemy, whom he thought he would never see again. But what is the shocking truth behind Victor's reincarnated mother? With enemies on all sides, how can Victor continue to carry on the legacy of Iron Man when the legacy of Doom haunts him at every turn? Collecting Infamous Iron Man 2016, number 1 through 12. We continue on here. It's a curious move to say the least, especially given that in the 3 years since Avengers Doomsday's initial announcement, Marvel could have easily published some sort of Iron Man, Doctor Doom multiverse story, either in continuity or as a non canon miniseries that would have been much more accessible to MCU fans than Infamous Iron Man, and it's already in progress and irrelevant to the movie plot. Hell, One World Under Doom was a Doom centric event centered specifically on him playing with the rules of magic. A Tony Stark variant of himself stepping into the multiverse to help put an end to his machinations is generally not that left field of an idea. Uh, The new single volume reprint, Infamous Iron Man Volume 1, currently holds a tentative release date of July 14th, 2026. So coming out next summer there. All right, so that's all we got for that one. We actually do have one more news item to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, before we actually, and this will kind of segue going from this to the wrestling wrap up. So we do need to talk a little bit about something that I just found out earlier today: the passing of former NWA World Junior Heavyweight and AWA World Tag Team Champion Steve Regal. Of course, this person is not to be confused with William Regal. This is this this is the reason why Lord Steven Regal had to go with the name um, William Regal. All right, so let me talk a little bit. This is a guy who had so Steve, he passed away at the age of 73 today. Wilbur Snyder, former AWA World Champion, was his father-in-law. He was born August 25th, 1951. Um, Passed away this past July 2025. I didn't even, so apparently he passed away earlier this year and nobody knew it. I just saw a thing on it earlier today. He was best known for his appearances in the American Wrestling Association, but he passed away earlier this year. Let me see. I recall. Yes, he was the former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, former AWA Southern Tag Team Champion with Hector Guerrero, as well as being a former AWA World Tag Team Champion with Jimmy Garvin. He also held the AWA World Light Heavyweight Champion. Um, so earlier this also held the Windy City Pro Wrestling Heavyweight and Junior Heavyweight titles, and held the the Indianapolis World Wrestling Association World Tag Team with Spike Huber, and held. So Steve Regal passed away on July 30th of this year at the age of 72. So, or 73. He was going to be 74. So, oh, we kind of missed out on that, but I just saw something on it earlier today, so that's why I needed to say something about it. We will give a somewhat of a belated moment of silence for him here, as soon as I clear this out, of course. Let me also prepare for the. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna. Oh crud! All right, looks like I might have to. I guess I'll have to wait a few minutes because apparently the cage match is not up at the moment for some reason. All right, so we're going to do a quick little moment of silence for Steve Regal here. Then we'll probably talk a little bit about what went down on Raw last night, and hopefully if I can pull the cage match site up, find out what's looking ahead for tonight's NXT. Anyways, here we go. All right, so there we go. Let me try one more time here. Now, last night, as we do move into the wrestling wrap-up here, of course, last night's Monday Night Raw was the go home Raw before this Saturday night's main event. As mentioned earlier, the card has been finalized. Looks like there's going to be 4 matches. Initially, there was just going to be 3, but there's a 4th one added. With John Cena, of course, claiming that he wants to focus more on the future of. Okay, there we go. All right, so it looks like we did get something up there. All right, so let's get into the wrestling wrap-up here. So last night's Monday Night Raw, coming from the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, Missouri, with Wade Barrett and Joe Tessitore on commentary. As things are heating up in the women's tag team division, as Io Sky with Rhea Ripley in her corner took on Kairi Sane and the Kabuki Warriors with Asuka in her corner. Saw Io Sky defeat Kairi Sane in singles action. It also saw let me see. Also did see some more heat generated between those 2 teams, as well as I think the Judgment Day duo as well. Then AJ Styles and Dragon Lee successfully retained the WWE World Tag Team titles over the former champs of War Raiders, Eric and Ivar, making their first Raw appearance in a few months. I believe Eric coming back from his injury at this point. Then following the match, Jay and Jimmy Uso had come out to challenge. That's the match that was added. So that match has been added for the World Tag Team titles. AJ Styles and Dragon Lee will be defending against the Usos, Jay and Jimmy Uso, former champions in their own right. Roxanne Perez with Liv Morgan in her corner defeated Lyra Valkyria with Bayley in her corner. As Bayley, of course, prepares for her match coming up against Sol Ruka this Saturday night. And Logan Paul with Paul Heyman in his corner defeated LA Knight with the Vision. With the Vision beating down and basically what some people will call burying LA Knight. But there have been some reports saying that LA Knight is being promised a big push in 2026, from what I've heard some news reports there. So, anyways, so that's all that we got from last night, and then we will look ahead to tonight. We will look ahead to tonight's NXT event. As, of course, NXT brand is coming off of their Deadline pay-per-view. That, of course, saw Obafemi become for the second time, the new NXT champion. On tonight's NXT, coming from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, the CW, Shiloh Hill will be issuing an open challenge. In a women's match, you'll see battle two former TNA Knockout champions, as Jordan Grace, a three-time former TNA Knockout champion, will be taking on the most recent one, who was recently defeated by Lei Ying Lee, Kalani Jordan. And then Blake Monroe is set to defend the WWE NXT Women's North American title in an open challenge, I'm guessing, against a mystery opponent. So that's all coming down tonight on NXT. Then let's look at the finalized card for this Saturday's night's main event, John Cena's final match, coming from the Capitol Center in Washington, D.C. Coming from the Capitol Center in Washington, D.C. Live on Peacock with, of course, Wade Barrett and Michael Cole on commentary. The night is actually going to open up with John Cena taking on Gunther. Gunther, who won the tournament to defeat. They're still trying to figure out just exactly how this match is going to end. John Cena has basically talked about how he wants to basically give back. Actually, and in a non-title tag match, I'm sorry, I said that AJ Styles and Dragon Lee were going to defend their title. Actually, they're not. In a non-title match, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee will be taking on the team of NXT's Javon Evans and TNA X Division champion Leon Slater. Bayley will be taking on former NXT Women's Speed and NXT Women's North American champion Sol Ruca. And in another non-title match, a battle of two champions, WWE Undisputed Champion Cody Rhodes will be set to take on NXT Champion Obafemi. So that's basically the finalized card for this Saturday night's main event. So, anyways, now we're done with the wrestling wrap up here. So now, of course, with today being Tuesday, December the 9th, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this date in neat history. So, yeah, let's see. 2009, 1995, 1965, and 2010. All right. So first up, we're going to head back 60 years ago. And on this date, 60 years ago today, A Charlie Brown Christmas premiered on CBS on this date 60 years ago today, becoming a holiday classic, of course. From Lee Mendelson Film Productions and Bill Melendez Productions, Charlie Brown Christmas would debut on CBS on this date back in 1965. A Charlie Brown Christmas is a 1965 American animated television special. It is the first TV special based on the comic strip Peanuts by Charles M. Schulz, and features voices of Peter Robbins, Christopher Shea, Kathy Steinberg, Tracy Stafford, and Bill Melendez, produced by Lee Mendelson, directed by Melendez. The program made its debut on the CBS television network on December 9, 1965. In the special, Charlie Brown, voiced by Robbins, by Peter Robbins, finds himself depressed despite the onset of the cheerful holiday season. After Lucy Van Pelt, as voiced by Tracy Stratford, suggests he direct a neighborhood Christmas play. His best efforts are ignored and mocked by his peers, and he chooses a puny Christmas tree as centerpiece. So, again, it's one of those things where, Charlie Brown is always kind of the hard luck kid who basically does his best but always gets put down by all of his peers. So anyway, 60 years ago today, A Charlie Brown Christmas premiered on CBS. Let's see. Now getting ready to move ahead to the year 1995. On this date in the year 1995. In the year 1995. From the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, ECW held its December to Dismember event from 1995. The main event of the show was an Ultimate Jeopardy steel cage match in which Raven, Steven Richards, that saw Raven, Steven Richards, and the Eliminators of John Cronus and Perry Sander, and the Heavenly Bodies of Jimmy Del Rey and Tom Pritchard, taking on the Pitbulls 1 and 2, the Public Enemy, Johnny Grunge and Rocco Rock, and Tommy Dreamer. The match saw the Pitbulls, Public Enemy, and Tommy Dreamer win the match. An earlier tag team match, of course, the Public Enemy defeated the Heavenly Bodies in a match for the ECW World Heavyweight title in a three-way dance. The Sandman defeated Mikey Whipwreck and Steve Austin. This is just before Austin went to the WWE. It became, it's still a bit before Stone Cold. Raven defeated Tommy Dreamer in a singles match earlier in the night. The Eliminators defeated the Pitbulls. Let's see. Hack Myers defeated Bruiser Mastino. And I got to check something here because I think, let's see, who could that be? Oh, Mike Hall. Oh, actually, Bruiser Mastino is the guy who went on to play like Mentor in WWE and Tank. There was a guy who had a similar name in WCW. That was actually Glenn Jacobs, aka Kane, but I thought that's who this might have been. But no, Hack Myers defeated Bruno Mastino, and then let's see. The opening match of the evening saw Dances With and Dudley defeat the team of Bad Breed of Axel and Ian Rotten, the Rotten Brothers. So that happened in 1995. That was 30 years ago today. Now moving on to the next piece of niche history here. Move ahead to the year 2009, which was, of course, 16 years ago today. So on this day in the year 2009, as soon as I bring that up, the 90th issue of Alter Ego from Tomorrow's Publishing went on sale on this date back in 2009. It sold for $6.95 with 96 pages. These were, of course, this was a company that did more or less a collection of reprints from other companies, as I understand it. But on this date, 16 years ago today, the 90th issue of Alter Ego from Tomorrow's Publishing went on sale on this date. And finally, in the year 2010, as soon as I bring that up, of course, in the year 2010, last but not least here, premiering on Japanese or actually being released in Japan as the Future Diary OVA from Asreed and Tatsunoko Productions' Princess Resurrection were both released on this date 15 years ago in 2010. All right, so with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow, of course. And also this Sunday, I'll be joined by Metal from the Vomitorium, as we will be looking back on comics that went on sale in July of 1940. We'll be looking at books that came out from Columbia Comics. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.